Welcome to Specifically About Quality. We are here to bring clarity to your toughest quality management questions and help you drive lasting results. I'm Agata Lewkowska, expert in automotive quality systems.
And I'm Christopher Scott. We're glad to have you with us. Follow us for more practical insights and don't hesitate to leave your comments. We love hearing from our listeners. If this podcast is helpful for you, we invite you to our podcast newsletter. For every episode, we prepare a newsletter with additional materials, free resources, and practical downloads related to the topic with access to all previous freebies from previous episodes. You can sign up directly on our website at Qualitywise or with the link provided with this episode. Expect a podcast newsletter every Thursday, 10 a.m. Central European Time.
We're really happy to have you with us, especially because this podcast is all about topics that look simple on paper but become extremely painful in real life, in automotive industry especially. And today's topic is exactly one of those. Today we are talking about managing requalification and revalidation. And if you're listening and thinking, yes, we do that, but in fact we are not sure what these two terms mean, then this episode is for you. Because requalification is one of those concepts that every IATF 16009 certified organization shall apply. These organizations have mostly system procedures, but very few organizations can clearly explain what it is, when it starts, when it ends, and what evidence actually proves that it was done properly.
And quite often, Agata, the word requalification only becomes important when the customer asks for an evidence of that. Or when an auditor says, show me how you decided this change did not require revalidation. But now there is confusion moment. What are we talking about today?
Yes, why requalification is so often misunderstood. So one reason this topic is so confusing is that requalification is not always clearly defined in the standards. The term itself comes largely from the German automotive market and from OEM expectations rather than from a single clean definition in IATF 16009. So Christopher, this is the moment where we absolutely have to talk about one IATF requirement. I'm talking about a clause dedicated to layout inspection and functional testing. So in IATF, this is 862. And you see, I did not say requalification. So the term requalification is equivalent to the IATF term, as I said, layout inspection and functional testing. And IATF is very clear here. A layout inspection and a functional verification according to applicable customer engineering, material, and performance standards must be performed as specified in the control plan. And the results must be available for customer review. So now we have the clue. What is requalification? Chris, what will you add?
Well, I could say what many organizations miss is the layout inspection is not a partial check. According to the standard, it is a complete measurement of all product dimensions shown in the design records, technical drawings. Not selected dimensions, not only special characteristics, all dimensions defined in the drawing. And what do we mean by a drawing or a design record? There's different types of drawings. And an assembly drawing, for example, is a top-level drawing. Typically, the supplier will give that to the customer, very top level. It only calls for the product characteristics which matter for fit, form, function, appearance. And then in the general notes, typically you will have things like what is the temperature that it should work in? What is the forces that the part should use? What is the electrical performance or software version? There are parent drawings, which I'm explaining, as well as child drawings. The child drawings will have subcomponent detail, which is very detailed, and all of that needs to be cascaded from supplier to customer. And this is usually missed in this standard.
Okay, thank you for this explanation. So let me keep going. And what I would like to add here as another key point is that the frequency of layout inspection is mostly determined by the customer, not by the organization. And this topic is too important for the customer that they will not define it simply. So in customer-specific requirements, definitely we will find some extra requirements. They may refer just to this frequency. This might be also connected to the homologation process because later OEM also must be compliant to the homologation institutions. Okay, so as I refer to customer-specific requirements, let me maybe give you some example. My favorite OEMs are German OEMs. I don't know, maybe because I know quite well those requirements of those 3 German OEMs. But let me maybe tell you what Volkswagen requires. Volkswagen defines requalification every 3 years in their customer-specific requirements. But if we are talking about special characteristics, DTLD so-called, then the requalification must be done every year. In contrary to this, BMW and Mercedes, they define requalification every year. They are not indicating if we have special characteristics or not. They just want every year to do a requalification. So, as I said, from the customer perspective, layout inspection and functional testings are the customer's mechanisms to periodically reconfirm that the product is still what was approved. And as I also said, this is important from the homologation perspective for OEMs. Also have their obligations toward homologation institutions, yes?
To add to that, maybe the term that people might understand is something called conformity of production, and that is in relation to type approval or specific components as well as special characteristics. Just to add, my favorite OEMs to work with, because I've worked with them and know them quite well, is the Japanese and French OEMs because of my background. They do it a little bit differently. In the Nissan world, they'll do something called a lighthouse system, and they get those special characteristics reported to them every month with every delivery. That's how much they care about the risk of having a recall or an issue, but every OEM is different based on the risk level. A very common mistake that we see is the layout inspection is treated as a laboratory activity only. It's done by very special engineers that very specific about type approval or homologation checks. The measurements are done, a report is created, and then it disappears into a folder. It's not reviewed and then checked just for compliance. But the real question is, how are these results used? How do they support the decision that the process is capable and under control?
Yes. Let's take a real example. So SPC looks good. CP, CPK values are acceptable. Let's remember, such as PC control is not performed on all characteristics on the product or even may refer to process characteristics, okay? But there are no customer complaints. Because of this, we may miss something and not have the full picture of the situation. But the layout inspection shows a dimensional drift. Everything is still within tolerances, but trends are clearly visible. That is already a requalification signal, I would say, not because the product is not conforming, but because objective evidence shows that the process is simply changing. Yes, this is from the real life example, Chris. And maybe you have something to add here.
Yes, Agata. The same applies to functional testing, and many companies perform functional tests only during the pre-series validation of the product and design, in terms of the PPAP and APQP phases. Then years pass without rechecking whether the product still meets the performance requirements under current conditions, current process conditions, and there may be design changes as well that can influence that. And from an IATF perspective, it explicitly requires functional verification according to the customer standards, with results available for the customer to review. This means tests are part of an ongoing product assurance, not a one-time event.
Yes. And last point, what I would like to say is that requalification is sometimes called small PPAP. Have you heard, Chris?
Not in my background, but I've heard like a lower level of PPAP. So you might not necessarily get a PPAP level 5, which is very strict, very stringent, on-site reviews. But I've heard maybe a smaller version, which is maybe the ISIR or the dimensional results, plus the functional test report, plus some additional validation reports.
Okay. So regarding the small PPAP, so if the customer asks maybe a question, how do you know this product still fulfills all requirements after, for instance, 5 years from SOP confirmed with PPAP? Your answer should be very clear because we performed layout inspection functional testing according to our control plan and customer requirements as well. And if that answer is not supported by evidence available for customer, then in reality, your qualification has not happened. This is why in mature quality systems, layout inspection and functional testing become risk management tool, I would say.
Well, Agata, we've talked quite extensively about requalification and what is really required from a customer as well as a supplier perspective and the certification bodies when it comes to type approval. And I hope now it's very clear what requalification is in terms of IATF requirements. Now I'd like to change the perspective and talk about revalidation. So now we will clarify how can we be sure that it still meets the customer requirements after the change.
We hear statements like, it was only a small change, or we've done this many times before, or the customer didn't complain last time. A very important point we want to make is that revalidation is not about how big the change is. It's about risk again. So small changes can have big consequences, especially when they accumulate over time. That's why we decided to keep going with revalidation for you.
Exactly. And some customers might have something called a change matrix, and they will say, based on the risk and the requirements, you can tell me when you want to move the product from one country, maybe let's say Germany to Poland, or from Poland to Turkey. We all agree, I'm sure, in this podcast that that's quite a big change. And I've had ones in the past working as an OEM as well as, a consultant, where one of the tier one suppliers decided to move their production line from Romania to Morocco, and they didn't fully validate the change. And when they did that change, it stopped the production line at the customer quite significantly. We've got to think about in terms of what type of change is significant. And if you don't know, the best thing you can do is contact the SQE person in the OEM or maybe the buyer, and they can then consult with you about what is needed. Now, if someone is off sick and it's one person in the production line, that doesn't really matter. And I'm confident saying most OEMs really don't care about that. What they care about is significant changes, like maybe going from a day shift to a second shift, which has never been done before. This is to do with things like training and competencies and making sure that those people are able to perform the operation repeatably. Now, let's think about something like tooling refurbishment, software updates, operator changes, supply material changes, even long-term tool wear. They may trigger a formal PPAP, and all of them can change how the product behaves. And I can say this with confidence in my experience as a parts quality engineer or a supplier quality engineer. And this is where many organizations struggle because they don't have a clear bridge between what type of changes they are, why they need to reconfirm product conformity. It's also connected to the lack of clear knowledge in which situations PPAP must be submitted to the customer, and in country, which situations requires to notify the customer and to expect a reaction or approval. We don't really need to go any further on PPAP or change management in terms of this podcast today. These are very big topics itself, and we do offer training and guidance on this as well. But if we'd like to move on, what's your view on this?
Okay, Chris, let's not develop these topics today. Let's maybe record separate episodes on PPAP or change management. And today, let's keep going. So how to build a working requalification system, okay? Let's keep with requalification because this is directly IATF requirement. So once organizations understand this link, the next step is building a system that actually works in daily operations, yes? And that means having clear rules that connect change management, risks, layout inspections, and functional tests. As discussed, part of requalification, which in fact can become revalidation elements, but triggered from different situation, which is not regularly planned requalification activity. We need to bear this on mind, yes?
And a good system doesn't overreact. It doesn't force full revalidation for every minor change, but it also doesn't rely on assumptions. And this is where tools like the control plan and the PFMEA become extremely powerful because they help you see what characteristics really matter when something changes. So for audits, customers, and trust, Agata, what is, from your perspective, to do with audits?
From an audit perspective, requalification is really an important topic because, first of all, it shows that companies are really proving on the timely manner that they are still meeting the requirements after the PPAP. So this is also as important as for the customer, yes, who has, as we said already, the obligations toward homologation institutions, yes? So this is the logic, yes? So from the audit perspective, you really need to demonstrate the evidences that you are doing requalification, yes? I would say functional testing and layout inspection, in other words.
And customers are exactly the same, Agata. They don't expect zero issues. They expect that when something changes, you know what it means and how to control it and how to notify them. In my experience working for many years in the automotive industry, I've had suppliers that are afraid of the consequences of asking a customer, we have a change, we need to do this change, it's an obsolescence, we're getting rid of the old product and we're now moving. Sometimes the suppliers, the tier ones and tier twos, are fearful because they think, okay, I need to go back through revalidation, it's full PPAP, I need to get a full team on this. And if you communicate these changes with your customers, you can have confidence that the direction is aligned.
Okay, Chris, I think we said a lot today about revalidation and requalification, and I hope everyone understands what those two terms mean. But if today's episode made our dear listeners realize that revalidation in your organization is still unclear or disconnected from layout inspection and functional testing, you're definitely not alone, because the good news is that this is one of the areas where relatively small structural changes can dramatically improve audit results and customer confidence.
With today's episode, we've created Requalification Done Right, a practical guide for quality professionals. You can subscribe to our Qualitywise podcast newsletter on our Qualitywise website under resources with the link provided in this episode. If you want support in reviewing or designing your requalification or revalidation approach, including proper alignment with IATF 16949 and customer requirements, we invite you to visit Qualitywise and check our consulting, audit and training offers.
We hope today's discussion gave you new insights for your quality work. If it did, please like this episode, leave a comment and share it with your colleagues. Let's spread good quality practices together.